Hi my stars. And recently I decided to reset my data in Gacha Club. Even though there were 100 slots to have Ox on, for me it was full. So I decided to have a fresh start. So some of my Ox I liked disappeared, which I was aware would happen. But anyways, so I'm going to create those Ox. Here's the 3 I'm gonna recreate. Plus one more I have not created in Gacha yet. So I'm gonna show you messed up recording of making them. And in the meanwhile, I'm gonna explain the Ox. So let's begin, shall we? So this is Darren Scotchberg. He is a cat-human hybrid species. His looks are inspired by freckles. I think his name is from Lackadaisy. But he looks more like Puss in Boots, but human. This guy often wears a button-up shirt with a black cape on. His personality can be quite annoying, since he has a few anger issues. He also despises affection to top-notch. It makes it hard for him to have a stable relationship with his fiancée Blake. He has an interesting, but yet sad background. He grew up in a rich family, with most of the time of his childhood with his dad. Well, that's because when Darren was 5 soon to turn 6, his father murdered his mother. He has ever since then hated his father. When Darren was 22, he ran away from his father to live his own life. But without any money, he ended up homeless. But then he met Jules and Blake, who were in a secret murder company. Darren was welcome to join them, since their boss was impressed by Darren's skills and knowledge about murdering. So, since Darren was free to have a home to live in, and it was only about killing people who deserved it, he decided to join. Then later on, he started to date Blake and have a good time with Jules. He lived happily. Well, that's Darren. Hope you like him. But let's move on to the next one. This is Blake. I have yet not decided his last name. He is a mockingbird hybrid species. He has special healing powers. To be honest, I don't know how a mockingbird looks like. I guess the hair color see just jeans. Anyways, he often wears tank tops and jeans. He is a calm person, but at the same time loves compliments and affection a lot. He has a sad background. He used to live with his parents and 2 siblings on the farm. His dad was calm and his mom could be strict, but at the same time kind. Blake had as in free time activity sword fighting or other things with swords and katanas. To example fencing. Then one day, when he was 16, he met a strange man. A man named Claude. Claude offered him some weird things, like being free from family and living the dream, but Blake disagreed. But when Blake was walking away from the man, he felt something that hit his head and he fell asleep. Then later on, Blake was forced to marry the man and be together with him until he turned 21. Then he managed to escape by hiding in one of the boxes in the back of a truck. Then he managed to get money from sword fighting people. The rules in the sword fighting were if you lose you need to pay $100. Then he met the boss of the killing company and decided to join them. Then one day, he met Darren. Darren wanted to sword fight him for money. Since he was homeless, Blake accepted. Despite Blake's amazing sword fighting skills, he lost because he was distracted by Darren's beauty. And then Blake asked his boss if Darren could join, and told him that Darren was amazing. His boss accepted Blake's request. Well, that's Blake, but let's move on to the next one. This is Jules Lerondo. They are a non-binary, just to mention, so you don't get their pronouns wrong. They are an axolotl hybrid, which means they turn into an axolotl human in water. They often wears a hoodie without sleeves and has a piercing under their lip. They're Spanish and their looks comes from my Spanish teacher. They have a lot of mental issues and find stuffed animals and plushies as support. They can be really childish, but they are the strongest in the group. They had a horrible background, to be honest. They suffered abuse mentally and physically from both their parents. The only thing they had was in Star Plush and in Grandma, who didn't visit often. Then when they were 12 years old, their parents abandoned them and locked them in the house. Luckily, the police found out what had happened and helped. He ended up in a foster home in the end. They lived happily with a best friend and to nice foster parents. But then they met a guy when he was 17. They fell in love with the guy, but the guy ended up being toxic. Jules didn't think much of it until they turned 27 years old. Jules had enough and decided to break up with the guy. Jules became lonely, but then got offered a job by a guy to invest in a killing company with him. They answered yes. They found it interesting and got into work. Times went by and Darren and Blake joined the killing company too. Jules got more friends. Even though he's 32 and the others are 26, they are still best buddies. Well, that's Jules. Let's move on to the last one. This is Mr. Lavender, but his real name is Tomi Kyoshami. He is what I've called boss through this entire video. The one who rules the secret killing company. Lavender usually wears elegant and formal clothing. As you'll see, he's a demon. And killer demon as it's called. It's in human species, just like how Darren is in cat hybrid and the others are animal. Or other type of hybrid with human. Anyways, he has a really bossy personality. Often strict and anger issued. He takes things very serious. Lavender is though often a sheep in wolf disguise. Let's go into Lavender's past. Lavender doesn't remember much of his own parents, since they died when he was only 4 years old. He was kidnapped by a guy who owned his own cult. And when Lavender grew up, he was forced to join too. Since he didn't initially want to, the guy who owned the cult gave him a curse. A curse that gave him extreme pain every time he disobeyed. But one day, he found an angel. The angel broke the curse and let him free. Lavender and the angel later on fell in love. They got married and gave birth to a baby daughter named Rosalind. But then the angel tragically died by an angel hunter. Left with sadness, Lavender decided to start over with a new girl. But the new girl was abusive. They did end up having a son named Damon. But after a week when he was born, she abandoned them. Between, Rosalind is 8 years old and Damon's 2 months. Lavender, an 40-year-old man, was left with betrayal. But he didn't care, just as long as his own kids weren't hurt. So that was Lavender. Well, that was all the ox. So, hope you had a good day, my stars. So bye.